Hey, this is Josh Tapp with the Lucky Titan, and if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my friend Scott Ferguson.
Hey, Time to Shine Today podcast squad. It's Scott Ferguson, and I am very excited to bring on my guest, Josh Tapp from the Lucky Titan. He helps content creators monetize and scale their audiences. So if you have a company or a online business and you want to level it up, Josh is one of the guys that you definitely need to connect with. He's an active podcaster. You can find him at the Lucky Titan on all the podcast directories. And it was a fantastic conversation. We're going to dive into taking risks, to connecting with people, to not being a robot, and actually putting a human touch into your communication. So without further ado, here's Josh Tapp of the Lucky Titan. Let's level up. Time to shine today, squad. I am super uber stoked to have on Josh Tapp from the Lucky Titan. Fantastic podcaster. I pick up so many knowledge nuggets from him pretty much on a daily basis. And if you've ever wondering how people hit their lucky break, you actually think it's luck that made them see the overnight success, or you actually see the work, or you want to hear about the work that goes into it, then you need to check out the Lucky Titan podcast. And he's also has helped over 250 audience owners, helping them monetize and scale their audience from day one, helping them instigate an audience collaboration network. So welcome to the show, Josh. Please share with our squad your favorite color and why.
Blue, because I love the ocean. There we go.
Right.
That's the most common color that everybody likes.
I'll tell you what, if you listen to any of I probably 98% are blue. I get some guys that come in red and like ready to rock and stuff like that, but blue's my favorite color too. I live 0.8 miles from the Atlantic Ocean here in South Florida, so it's like I'm there every day. So that's awesome. So tell us a little background, Josh. Tell us a little bit about the Lucky Titan and how you got your origins, how you got started.
Yeah. So I actually, when I first got started with the Lucky Titan, I was running a marketing agency for small business owners. So we actually did Facebook ads for small business owners, which is kind of I guess 5 years ago, that was the business to be in, right? It was a great place to get into because there were no barriers to entry whatsoever. It took about maybe $1,000 to learn how to do it, and then you were good to go. Grew that while I was going to college and ended up having it buy me out of college. I graduated. Started my master's, but while I was doing all that, I ended up growing this business and started to scale it out. So I got to a point though one day where I woke up and realized I am not doing what I want to do. And I sat down with a mentor of mine. His name is Michael Maitland, if you haven't heard of him, multimillionaire guy. And he sat down with me and said, "Hey, why do you do what you do?" And I was like, man, like I couldn't tell you, I'm like, well, I like money,
Okay.
There's good money there. I like my customer. I love working with small business owners and I love the marketing. And he's like, well, then why aren't you happy?
Right.
And it came to my realization that my problem is that the relationship I had with people was wrong. It wasn't, right for me, I guess, because for some people that done for you relationship's great. But for me, what it was is I wasn't spending a lot of time with customers, building relationships. I wasn't focused heavily on the marketing side of it. I had to focus a ton of my time on the sales and begging for business. So when I sat down with this guy, my mentor, he's like, well, how about you just change? Why don't you do something else? And man, that was a come to Jesus moment for me, where I was like, man, I've got to change what I'm doing. And so what we decided to do is I basically sold out all my shares of that. I actually only own 10% of Versity Marketing now. Mm-hmm. But, and we started the podcast, and pretty quickly it ended up scaling and growing, and people started coming to me to ask for my help with coaching. And actually right now, all we do is run masterminds. So I focus on helping people build groups of people to be able to mastermind with them.
Right. And
that's us in a nutshell.
No, I love it. And you had mentioned in one of your podcasts that you can't really be a coach unless the other person's on board. So Let me ask you something. How do you approach somebody to bring them on board, or are people approaching you more?
So that's a good question. And the reason I told the story about Versity Marketing is to answer that exact question, because when I was doing Versity Marketing, we were spending so much time begging for business. You spend a lot of time with lead generation, you're doing the sales, you're trying to come up with all these amazing sales tactics. But then when I started this podcast, I had people come to me and say, what can I pay you to help me with my business? And these are like, I had a 9-figure earner come to me and say, hey, I need your help with this. And I was like, what?
Right.
Tables turned, right? And they come with wallets wide open. That's when you become a coach. And for me, this is where I get really frustrated with people is everybody tries to just start being a coach, but you don't become a coach until the student chooses you, in my opinion.
And you have to actually be a consultant almost before a coach in a sense.
Right.
Give them
Yeah.
stuff of value, correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And I would even say one of the things that people, and this is kind of what we teach, is even more so than becoming a consultant, a lot of it's about just getting around the right people. Because if you become known as the person who gets the right people in the right room, so for us, we built out a mastermind, right? When I first started, we had my mentor come in. So I leveraged the fact that he was a millionaire and we got multiple other millionaires in this room with him, right?
Right.
They were talking about how to monetize and scale their audience, which is actually what I was good at. So by reciprocity, I was really cool, even though I was pretty much brand new in the industry. And we were able to leverage that relationship. And that's when people started coming to me saying, can you coach, consult me, what have you? It's
Right.
the difference between being a reporter and a coach.
Absolutely. So you were really kind of you were in a sense what I would say a nuisance, because I have people that run my Facebook ads and stuff. It's a necessity, but it's almost like a nuisance. You're like, crap,
Yeah.
man, there's money that's going out there. So then you kind of moved over into where you're having to go out and make connections, make relationships and sales. And so give us, our listeners, some tips on how they can kind of dig deep enough and build those relationships with the new people.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing I would tell people is to not be scared of your ideal customer. People get, so everybody kind of has their ideal customer. Like, yeah, it'd be so great if I could work with millionaires, but I'm not cool enough yet. The reality is the millionaire people are actually a lot more accessible than you think they are. For us, what I decided to do, I was like, hey, you know what? I want to work with people who I don't have to be pulling from their mortgage in order to provide a good service for them, right? Which for us, and this is what's kind of funny, Scott, you having a real estate background, we worked with a lot of real estate agents. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that money comes out of their pocket, and whether they're wealthy or not, they're like, well, this is like my mortgage money, But with somebody who's already built $1 million business, they're willing to just throw money at whatever they got to do to be able to level it up. But most people actually plateau at that 7-figure mark. So for most people, if you're wanting to reach out and scale a business or create those sales opportunities, I leverage LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number one platform.
We met there, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because what we do is we actually have a system we use to connect with the right people. But I don't use any sort of automated conversation software, which, by the way, I'm going to totally call people out for that. Don't do that.
Please. Yeah, don't do that.
You can start a relationship with automation by saying, okay, this is my ideal customer, send one message, and then you need to take over.
Right. I love that advice, guys. Hey, squad, listen to that. Everything that I do start with an automated message. Josh got one, but then I reached out and said, man, I'm stoked that you're going to come on, and here is my questionnaire. Here is my flow. And if there's anything we need to talk about before. So thank you for saying that, because I try to get that over to them all the time, especially when building relationships. They don't want to, they're already talking enough robots on that handheld and everything else that they're doing all day. So I appreciate you saying that, man.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, if you want to, I guess the problem that a lot of people have is they're more concerned about bulk relationships, where what I teach people is how to leverage joint venture opportunities. Right. So your goal isn't one-to-one. Your goal is from one to many.
Sure.
So what you should be doing is focusing on not on just reaching out to your ideal customer. You're reaching out to somebody who owns an audience of your ideal customer. So for example, let me give you an example here. So we had a guy, he found us, he came on my podcast. I hadn't really ever heard of him. He came, joined our mastermind. We became really good friends. And he said, hey, let's do a joint venture deal. I'd like to promote what you're doing. I'm like, great. Usually when people say that, they have like 1,000 people in their audience. I'm fine to do that, right? Like, because every single person that we can help, I'm totally in for that, right? But usually you don't get these people with big audiences. And he came to me and he said, dude, I have over 200,000 people in my audience, and I've never sold them a single thing.
Wow.
And I'm just like, are you serious right now? That's green pastures, man, if you're a marketer. And what was funny is, so he runs a success, motivation, inspiration Facebook page.
Right.
and he has a bunch of followers across all the platforms, multimillionaire guy. And, he's never sold anything on these platforms. So
Sure.
he's like, hey, let's sell your podcast on there. And so we literally, for free, I didn't have to, or sell my podcast, sell my mastermind on there.
Right.
But I didn't have to spend a single dollar in advertising. I went onto his platform. We ended up, he just had me come on and teach what I teach here, like on podcasts. And we had a bunch of people come over and join the mastermind. And that's the reason why I love doing that, because instead of me having to go out and say, okay, I've got to reach out to 300 people so I can get 18 of them to meet with me, and of those 18, I'm going to sell 5. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the process that everybody thinks about. But literally within 1 hour of work, I sat down and we had like 10 times that amount come through go ahead.
How was his engagement already with having 200,000 people?
That was a funny thing. He had very poor engagement.
Okay.
And I hope he doesn't listen to this. I'm sorry, Curtis.
That's what I was wondering, because I have people that I know that I mastermind with that have, because there's 40,000 plus of you Time to Shine, subscribers out there. Thank you again. And luckily they engage. I mean, I'm getting about a 14% open rate on emails that I'm sending out, but other people have bigger, audiences like that. And so can you tell us maybe what you did without sharing too much of the secret sauce to get them started?
How do you mean? Like to get our customer started, or to get that relationship
to get
going?
his relationship back rekindled with his audience?
Yeah. I'm always open to give the secret sauce, by the way. I hold nothing back. So
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you're trying to create a relationship like that, everybody's like black and white. They're like, either it's about me or it's about you. How much value can I provide? But your goal needs to not be that. Your goal needs to be thinking about collaboration. Who are people that I can collaborate with? Because everybody knows if you're providing value, you're eventually going to ask for something, right?
Right.
I don't say that's a dumb method. I mean, you definitely should be providing value to people, but you should be coming at them with a collaboration sense. So for this guy, right, he promoted me, I promoted him. It was just a trade, right?
Beautiful.
We both have an audience. It was very easy to promote each other.
Okay.
If you're looking to create relationships like this, though, I can tell you the exact method we use to connect with people like this. So first off, LinkedIn's beautiful because pretty much everybody will connect with you. As long as you don't connect with them, then send them a link, right? That's a big no-no. Do not send people links unless you've asked them, can I send you a link?
Sure.
But the messaging that I do with people is I actually look up specific people, again, who own my ideal audience.
Gotcha.
So for example, I look for a podcaster who helps audience owners, or like content creators, for example. So if they're a podcast host, YouTube channel owner, what have you. I find people like that who have an audience of people like that. So for example, this guy, right, he has the Success, Motivation, Inspiration page, which is a very heavy entrepreneur group. I saw the group. Actually, he's probably not a good example because I had already met him. Let me share a different one with you.
Okay.
This guy named Frank Agan, right? So Frank, he has a huge networking group all across the US. We were trying to launch another product. I found him on there, and instead of just saying, oh, hey, like kiss and butt, I'm saying that's what everybody tries to do, I gave him a genuine compliment. I went through, I read his articles, and this is what we do with everybody. Takes about 15 minutes to do your research on this one person. But I read his articles, reached out to him with a message that just said, hey, thanks for this little snippet. I really love what you teach about this. Would you be willing to come teach that to my audience? So all we did is I used the podcast, which is something you can set up in 2 hours if you don't know. It allowed me to meet with him, and in an hour we became friends, and we were able to create a joint venture deal, and he owns one of the largest networking companies in the US. So there's people like him that you can do that with. And here's the thing. He is one of hundreds of them, because what we do is out of every 100 people, I'll have about 98 say yes to me when I use this method.
Wow. Because you're personally engaging with them. You're not looking like a robot, right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, and so you think about that. Okay. Well, yeah, it takes about 15 minutes of time to get in with them and everything. But how long does it take you to reach out to 100 people with automated conversations, do an hour sales call, all this other trash you have to do with this people just to get one sale?
Correct.
But with people like Frank, I can do that. We do a joint venture opportunity, and we're going to get 10 to 100 sales from him with $0 spent and very little time, honestly, after all is said and done. And so I'm a huge advocate of creating these joint venture deals, because this is the way to grow today, even more so than ads. And I'm an ads guy. I understand the importance of Facebook ads.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
These deals are what I don't know, this is what helps you scale times 10.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So tell me a little story about maybe your worst, we'll call you an entrepreneurial moment so far to date that you've had challenges that you've had to overcome.
Honestly, I think one of the worst ones was I already kind of explained, with Versity Marketing, was having that crap, I'm not doing what I want to do thought,
Sure.
Waking up, not really appreciating my customers. I didn't like the relationship I was forming with them. I didn't like have to beg all the time. But there's actually been 5 different times. I've owned 5 different companies, and the first 4 have either failed or we closed out of Versity Marketing. Right.
Right.
And all of those were great businesses. I genuinely believed in what I was doing and everything, but the business cycle happens. You're going to fail. But the beautiful part is once you failed, you're never going to forget.
Did you hear that, squad? He just said basically you're never going to forget your failures. Like we always say, when you fail forward. You back up that what your goal is with persistence. It doesn't recognize failure. And I love that about Josh, because if he goes through 5 businesses and he's still succeeding, then he's the epitome of persistence. Tell me, Josh, what's with having 5 businesses, and some of them were failures, some were successes, and now you're rolling now. What's the one thing you know for sure?
One thing I know for sure is it's all about trying again. You're always going to have that next obstacle, and it never gets easier, right? Everybody says, oh, I'll just be happy when. And I know this is super cliche, but it's like you had mentioned before, if you quit, if you have a business, it fails, then you just quit and you say, I'm going to go back and, work corporate America forever. Right. You've given up.
Right.
And you've actually closed off, whether you believe in God, the universe, or whatever, you've closed off the opportunity for you to be able to progress.
Right. And receive from what they want to give you, right? Because it's infinite.
100%.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's infinite. And one of the things that's hard for a lot of people is people think black and white. They're like, oh, well, I'm either an entrepreneur or I'm a business owner, right?
Love it.
But for most people, the beauty of today's world is that you can do both. You can start a business while you're working a very comfortable job in the evening times. And so how everybody says like 95% of businesses fail within the first year?
Sure.
They've actually recently released a study that 33% of side hustles actually succeed.
Wow, that's beautiful. And
Yeah.
out of those 95% that fail, I wonder how many quit. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference between failure and quit. I mean, failure, you can push. A lot of people just get tired of the grit, because gritting is a monotonous activity. You've got to bite down that mouthpiece and progress every day. I knew about that in Iraq and, the stuff that I had to do back in my earlier years. But what's one thing that has blown Josh Tapp's mind? What's the one thing that's blown your mind?
Right now, it's been masterminds.
Yeah?
Straight up. If you've ever been a part of a mastermind before, I was one of those skeptics. It's kind of like counseling, right? Like getting therapy.
Sure.
It's like one of those things you're like, you don't really understand the value of it till you do it.
Right.
And for us, what's been really crazy was getting people into these masterminds. So for us, right, we're bringing in multimillionaires to come join in these audiences, right? But I can bring a brand new person into here, and what's blowing my mind is that they're getting these connections and scaling their business 10 times as fast. And for me, that's what's been happening for us, right? I'm still newer in the entrepreneurial game,
right.
And the relationships that have been coming and how quickly we've been able to scale without spending any money has just blown the doors wide open for us.
I love that. So the masterminds, you do them via like Zoom or like virtual, or is it in person, or how do you do your masterminds?
So the first one I joined was Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. Do you know who they are?
Oh, yeah, Dean and Tony. Yeah. If you're listening.
Oh, awesome. I love it. Dean is incredible. I love his stuff, and I love Tony Robbins is his partner, in pretty much everything they do. They're great.
They live
guys,
right down the street here.
Yeah. Is he going to come to your house?
I wish.
Really incredible stuff, right? But so for us, the first mastermind I joined was by those guys.
Okay.
And they basically, what they did is they created an opportunity for people, newer business owners, to be able to come in and mastermind, as it's called, about what's working and what's not working in their business.
Okay.
The first time I went to one, it blew me away. I mean, it's 10 times better than any course you're going to take or anything you're ever going to do. And you're going to leave with 10 times the value because you're not the one person trying to solve your problem by studying. You're having everybody in the room helps you solve those problems. And the cool part is you're always going to have somebody in that room who has already been through the trial you've been through. I believe this in everything. This isn't just in business. We've helped a couple of people do this with like parenting, with other people have been doing it with pet therapy and things like that, right? So doing lots of different ways. It's all about figuring and talking about what's happening in your life, because we're just kind of hiding behind our computers. Our whole goal, and my whole goal with our company, is to get people out and away from or out from behind their computer. So that they're not sitting here trying to accomplish things while hiding in their basement, right?
They're able to get out and engage. And like I like to say, press some flesh every once in a while, shake hands, meet people, and engage that way. I love that. Hey, Josh, what are, outside of your cell phone, what are 3 things that you cannot live without?
My wife.
Family. Love it.
Yeah, definitely not a thing, but person.
Sure.
That's a really good question. The things I can't live without. My mic is definitely one of those. I've got to have a mic at all times because you never know what's going to happen. Man, that's a good question. You're stumping me pretty good here.
No, that's not what I want to do, but I like to get to my squad because they hear me a lot. I put out, 3 or 4 podcasts a week and they hear me a lot. I like to hear what other people, I actually think that one thing you couldn't live without is your mastermind. Your people that you're, you're not relying on, you're able to pay it forward a lot, but you're also gaining a lot of wisdom and knowledge nuggets from them as they pass them down to you. That's fantastic. What you're doing is just awesome. And so with that being said, you're a family man, you love to give, you're a go-giver. What is your definition of a life well lived?
Honestly, I think a life well lived is one where you take risks. Okay. And you could look back and say, man, I took so many risks.
Right. And you say whether they worked out or not, right? And say, hey, man, I got after it, bit down on my mouthpiece, and I just moved forward. All right, Josh, I do have one of those level up lightning rounds. Got about 5 questions. You and I could talk for 20 minutes each on these, but let's limit to like 5 to 7 seconds.
Perfect.
You ready? All right. What's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Create joint venture partnerships, period.
Love it. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
I have a daily routine. I wake up every single day at 6:30. Some people are they rise earlier than that, but for me, it's the routine.
Early riser, love it. Other than your own website, The Lucky Titan, and of course, TimeToShineToday.com, what is a great internet resource you could recommend to our squad?
eofire.com.
JLD. Yeah. Okay. Recommend a book and why? Just in 5 seconds, though. Give me a book that it's your go-to. You're feeling drums, feeling mad, doldrums. What book you going?
Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo.
You know what? Very few people heard of that, but I know it. I've read it. That's awesome.
It changed my life. That book did.
All right. Last one. You're the best decade of music, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s.
Oh, I'm a 90s child.
All right. I think the 90s, brother. Awesome. Cool. All right. Before we end, leave us, our squad, with a knowledge nugget you definitely want them to take away with them.
Well, of everything we've talked about today, the one thing I hope that you will take away from this is that you need to go out there and you need to take risks. Be willing to get a platform to stand on. If you don't have a podcast, you don't have a Facebook group, you don't have any sort of thing that you're building an audience on, you're losing in business. I don't care how successful you are, because you're leaving relationships off the table, right? Or on the table, whatever you want to call it. Wow. So definitely make the opportunity, make time, even if it's 5 minutes a week that you can dedicate to something, make time to have an audience.
All right, Josh, we know that we can find you on theluckytitan.com, also on LinkedIn, but where else can we find you? And are there any events or masterminds or anything that you want to share? We'll put them all in the show notes for them. Yeah,
awesome. So everything we do actually runs through theluckytitan.com. So it's theluckytitan.com. Some people forget to put the in there. Mm-hmm. Faux pas of the beginning of starting a business, right?
Right.
But one of the best places I like to send people is if you're getting started, and a lot of your listeners are still like in the job realm, come join us over in the Tribe of Titans. So it's it's tribe.theluckytitan.com. And you can access that through theluckytitan.com as well. But that's just a free community that we have. We actually don't host it on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything. It's a proprietary social media platform that we've built to help you build high-level connections.
I'm going there now.
Awesome.
So, all right. Yeah, that's awesome. Any other events or places?
So that's just definitely the first place to go. If you do want to join us in one of our masterminds, you can check us out at theluckytitan.com/AHG, which stands for Audience Hypergrowth.
Gotcha. AHG. All right. Well, Josh, this is awesome. And hey, squad out there, get yourself a platform to stand on. Whether it's a podcast, a website, we're always talking about leveling up our health, our wealth. We're talking about staying humble and staying hungry, all in the service of people. And I am super stoked that, Josh, you're part of our squad now. Like it or not, you're here to stay.
I like it.
And everybody, get over to theluckytitan.com now and join at least his free Tribe of Titans. Correct, Josh?
Right.
Yeah. Join at least there. Okay. And then go back to my Facebook group and then put Tribe of Titans in there as well. And then let's hashtag Tribe of Titans all over social media. So again, man, I'm humbled, Josh. I'm honored to have you on. And thank you so much for taking, more than enough of your valuable time, brother.
Yeah. Thanks a ton for having me on.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.